Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Teresa Russell. I'm the club president of the Double Worthington Rotary Club, and it is, I'd like to welcome you to our club. It is our 23rd meeting of the 49th year of our club, and we will have our invocation and pledge by Win Whistle.
Our Father, we gather today as Rotarians in the communities of Worthington and Dublin and nearby. We thank you for the ability to attend today, the ability to have the blessings that we have. We thank you for life. Please help us understand and participate in the world affairs as we somehow can, because we're kind of in a state of unknown and frustration. Help those who are making decisions in Washington and around the world. Help us to understand. We thank you for this food, that we can be of service to you today. Amen.
One nation under God, indivisible.
Thank you, Wynn. Anybody have any announcements? You can make your way up. I would like to thank those that are helping serve today. Harry is our greeter, Jennifer is our cashier, Charlie is our raffle. Wynn, of course, you already heard from, and we'll have our sergeant later. Emily, you have announcements?
Come on down, girl, don't trip. It's all the way in the
You can
back.
stand out there if you want.
Hi, everyone. January is upon us, and we have the Rotary Youth Exchange Weekend, January 20th and 21st. So I will be passing around a sign-up sheet for dinner hosts like we did last year, as well as volunteers to help out with breakfast and with host side, which are the other activities. I'll send out an email with more details. But if you have any questions, you can come see me after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And Steve, you want to introduce other guests for us? Very special guests.
We are lucky to have with us a visiting Rotarian from the Marietta Club. Let's give a 1-5 welcome to Terry Radzak, who is our district. Oh, Terry, you gave me the thing. Nominee designate, district governor nominee designate. 1, 2, 3.
And next we have Ro with some visitors today. Yes.
So I wanted to introduce everyone today to two of our Interact Club officers from Worthington Fulton High School. I invited them to visit with us today because they are still off school and won't start back until tomorrow. And they're going to share with us a little bit of what they're working on this year and some of their future plans. So please join me in welcoming our two Interact officers, Isa and Mia.
Hello, everybody. My name is Isa Hug.
And I'm Mia Manning.
And we're sophomores at Worthington Gilmore High School, and we're the Interact Club co-presidents. So Interact is a community service club. It's very relaxed. It's basically open to any students who are free to just come and help out with our planned project. And we would like to do one event each month. That's our plan for the rest of the year. So in December, we had our first event with My Very Own Blanket. These are some pictures from it. Basically, My Very Own Blanket is an organization that does handmade blankets for children in foster care. And it actually started here in Westerville, and now it's like a nationwide, and it's also spread to Canada. So Mia's gonna tell us a little bit about why we partnered with My Very Own Blanket.
So this organization was very intriguing to me because my family fostered my two younger siblings, and we have now adopted them. But it is really important to me and our group to help those who are in need. And, I really wanted to give to those who are in a similar situation to my siblings. And I also remember seeing kids during fostering events and things like that, receiving blankets and other special things. And I could tell just how important it was for those kids to receive something that was just from them, for them, from somebody who cared about them.
So at our event, we had about 20 people show up and we made 20 blankets. And we also made some cards for assisted living homes. So we did kind of two things at our event so people can have multiple things to do. We did this event for 2 hours right after school. And we actually got Jessica Rudolph, who is the founder of My Very Own Blanket, to come and talk to us, which was really interesting. We're really excited to continue this and just plan more events in the future.
Yes, we, like as I said before, we're hoping to do, one event a month. And we had our first event at the school, but our goal is to get to go to other places around the community, possibly the food pantry, the Worthington Resource Pantry, or even grounds cleanup around the school or other areas. We also have a calm cafe at our school, which is during lunch periods on Wednesdays. It's open for clubs to host events. So we were hoping to possibly get some more interest for the club and have some more kids get involved. So
Thank you so much for your support. We're really excited to work with you all for the next coming years.
And we have a sergeant today, Jerry. I heard that all of December here.
Bring the bucket.
Right.
Bringing in the new year.
Oh. We're in.
The younger comrades, you're gonna carry the tot because you didn't respond to my ringing in the new year.
I've been growing up.
Okay, it's a new year. Who's got happy dollars for a new year? Nobody's happy? Yes,
I'm happy for a new year.
very good, Steve.
That's Bill.
And Ro Morrow, who's obviously not traveling today.
Okay. So I just wanted to say I'm happy and excited for these young ladies and for today's youth. They exemplify what we have in our future and they make me excited, so I'm.
Here, here. And another great thing about co-presidents is that they're sophomores.
Yes.
So we can get a little bit of, well, you know what. Jennifer, I hardly recognize you.
Way back in the back. So I'm happy because I have a new grandson in the Philadelphia area and we got to spend the whole, New Year's weekend with him.
New year, new babies.
Although he was born on December 28th, so.
That's okay.
Good time.
That's okay. Did you all see the national news where these twins were born? And one of them in last year, one of them in this year. So you know what these twins are gonna, they're boys, so they're gonna be adventurous. And so they're gonna be telling everybody, yeah, we're twins, we were born in different years. We were born a year apart. Yes, Ms.
I
President.
just want to congratulate Christy and her team for a wonderful holiday party.
Yes.
Any more happy dollars?
Our son got engaged on New Year's Day.
Very good. Very good. Anything else? Today's the anniversary of the first woman to ever be indoctrinated,
not indoctrinated. Can't even think of the word because I'm too old.
Bonnie said install.
Pardon me?
Bonnie said install.
Yeah, that's a good word. Installed in the, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So who was it?
Janis Joplin.
Janis Joplin is wrong. I wasn't gonna find it, but since you're guessing the wrong person, that table could put in a buck. Any other, this is such an easy answer.
Just put it there.
Yes.
Joni Mitchell.
No, not Joni Mitchell. Your table can put in $1. You're making this simple for me. Nobody else? It's Aretha Franklin. Why wouldn't you pick Aretha? Never mind. All right, so today is the National Chocolate Covered Cherry Day. And that's all I got to say about that. It's also National Drinking Straw Day. Now, that's because on this day, the first patent for a wax drinking straw was granted. But I hope you have your money out. If you suck at anything, put in $1. Now, in 1899, a few years back,
Nowhere to go without.
the first use of the word automobile appears in an editorial in the New York Times, which I thought that was pretty good because automobiles really weren't much of a thing until the early 1900s. So this happened in 1899. So what I'm going to tell you is if you have ever read an editorial in the New York Times, put in $1. In 1920, the Boston Red Sox signed an agreement to sell Babe Ruth to the Yankees for a whopping $125,000 and a $350,000 loan. It started, of course, the 84-year curse of the Bambino. So, based on that, if you've ever eaten a Babe Ruth candy bar, put in $1. In 1952, Dragnet with Jack Webb premiered on NBC TV. In this organization, we have a 4-way test. So, if you have never, ever, no, that'll be too easy. If you have ever, not just the facts, ma'am, put in $1. Now, because we have a lot to do today, I'm gonna cut this short. Aren't you happy about that? And so, I have 2 one-liners for you. Why did the Invisible Man turn down the job offer? He couldn't see himself doing it. It is the new year, and so many times when the new year comes around, some of us kind of think back and we kind of, reminisce. I was reminiscing about the beautiful herb garden that I had when I was growing up. Good times.
Oh,
You have to know your spices.
yeah.
Oh my.
It's very good.
Well, I want to say hello to Tom Rice, welcome. Nice to see you this year. And Dave Hansen, I saw your sunshiny face too. Not paying attention. All right, today's program. Oh, there he is. Hi, Dave.
Yeah.
Deanna, Rich Goldberg, hello to you both as well. And I also want to mention, we do not have raffle tickets today, but that's okay. There is still a bucket in the back if you want to donate, feel free.
For next week, my twice as many.
There you go. We have a program today, Don,
Yes.
you're on.
All right.
Hi, Deanna.
He's gonna get me launched here.
That's right.
Hey, thank you.
There you are, sir.
There's the clicker. All right. Well, today we're continuing with our tradition of having each committee have a meeting and a presentation at one of our club meetings. Today we have community service committee. Or I need to point out that in the past, we have done something similar to this by doing a club assembly. So, you know, I think about 3 or 4 years ago, we did a club assembly on community service. So let's talk about the community service committee. Let's see if I can get this to go forward. So today we'll have an overview of the committee. We'll go through the project calendar, which is basically a listing of our projects by the time when we normally do them. Discussion of some recent and upcoming projects. And then we hope to have some input from all of you, not only on the recent and upcoming projects, but also on any future project ideas you have. So community service is one of the principal service areas of Rotary. You can see them all listed here. Club service, community service, international, vocational, and new generations, which is a new service area, relatively new. So it's one of the major areas, service areas of Rotary. But we to kind of distinguish what we do, sometimes people say, oh, you ought to go out and raise all this money. Here's a great idea to raise money. That's not community service. If the only reason you're doing it is to raise money for the club, that's ways and means. Your primary purpose is raising money, it's ways and means, even if there's an incidental community service impact. By the same token, some of what we do in community service is raising money for a particular purpose, which is different. Like if we're soliciting donations of food and personal items and maybe cash for the food pantries, that's community service, okay? That's not the same as international service, obviously, because it's within the US. It's not the same as club service. That's what Harry and Jennifer are doing today in the internal club operations. It's not the same as vocational service, which is how we help each other in our vocations and support our growth in our occupations. That's not the same as youth service, which we heard about today from Emily. So the first thing you have to ask is, well, what's our community? You know, I think we know what service is, but what's community? Well, it always and primarily means the Dublin and Worthington school districts. That's the service area, if you will, of our Rotary Club. While recognizing, however, that we have a lot of members that are outside of those two areas. But we also have worked on projects benefiting people in need outside of that service area. Mostly within the state of Ohio. I can't think of an example of a community service project or something we call a community service project that's outside of Ohio. We have done projects outside of Ohio, with I think the key being, do club members have a passion to participate in that activity, notwithstanding that's outside of our primary service area. When we're working outside the Dublin and Worthington area, in fact, even sometimes what is within it, since we have two sister Rotary clubs, or actually offspring Rotary clubs, given the history in this area, it's good to work with other Rotary clubs and other non-Rotary clubs, and maybe we should do more of that than we do. But when we're working outside that service area, I think it's always good to be working with another Rotary club. So if we're going to do something in Southeast Ohio, work with a Rotary club there, strengthen their Rotary club, right, and take advantage of their existing connection as opposed to trying to come in and appearing that we're doing their work in their community for them. And historically, I have to point out, a lot of our projects have had a Worthington focus. For example, we have, even though it's a primarily Ways and Means project, our family picnic has been in Worthington. Originally, our efforts to raise or to generate donations for the food pantry was Worthington Food Pantry focus, but now we've broadened that. So we're trying to broaden it to include development projects too, so that we are a Belleville Worthington program that's focused just on Worthington. We want to focus on both. So how do we serve? Well, there are times when we just give money, but that is not how we prefer to do it. We prefer projects where Rotarians are doing something that's visible in the community, where it's visible that Rotarians are doing it, and where, as a Rotarian or someone in the community say, this is something Rotary is doing. This is not just something where Rotary is writing a check. This is something where Rotarians are involved and Rotarians are doing something in the community. For example, we could just donate money to the Family Mentor Foundation for buddy boxes, but we don't do that. We say, we'd like to come in, originally we're doing 2 or 3 times a year, now we're 4 times a year. We're saying we're going to assemble buddy boxes. We'll give you a donation to pay for the food. But we want Rotarians to come in and assemble those buddy boxes. And we want it to be known that the Rotary is doing that. We could just donate money to the food pantries. Or we used to have, it was really an internal project where we would, within the clubs, solicit donations. But now we have an outreach, community outreach part where we go out in the community a couple times a year, and we are visibly out there soliciting those donations. So we turn that into something where Rotary is actually doing something, Rotarians are doing something rather than, as opposed to helping to raise money in the club just writing a check. Community Service Committee is organized around projects. In fact, sometimes we have the projects have had the same project chairs for years, and all the committee, plans and oversees these projects. The reality is the chair people know what they're doing and have been doing it so well for so long. They don't require an awful lot of oversight. But we're organized around projects. So you can work on a project even if you're not on the committee, and I hope you do. In fact, I hope everyone, at least a couple times a year, works on a community service project, even if you're not on the committee. Each project has a champion. The champion is usually the chairman of the committee that's running the project, but the champion, we think, is more than that. We want it to be someone that's not just running the project, but they're soliciting other people to get involved in the project. They're carrying the water in terms of getting anything approved by the board, getting people interested in the project, soliciting volunteers for the project, etc. And as we see when we get to talk about new projects, one of the questions we ask if someone has a new project idea, that's great. Who wants to be the champion for that? Because we can have a lot of great ideas, but unless someone is willing to step up and make that project work, it's just an idea. It's not a project. Pre-pandemic, we actually had an approach where we tried every couple of months to have a community service project that members could participate in at or after the club meeting. For example, a couple of them we still do that way, but the example of the food pantry donations, we used to do that at a club meeting. Bring donations to the club meeting. Was the community outreach that you did that as part of the club meeting. We would pack seedlings for Arbor Day at a club meeting or right after a club meeting. And we still do pick up the Christmas gift ideas and bring in the Christmas gifts at club meetings. Some of the stuff we still do at club meetings. We used to try to do either all of it or all but maybe one project a year at a club meeting so that everybody could participate. It was part of their club meeting duties. Well, obviously with the pandemic, that became kind of impractical. We weren't having in-person club meetings, so we had to rethink how we did things. Plus, at one of our club assemblies, we got feedback from the membership saying, let's not do that. Maybe we need to do every couple months, but maybe we need to do more stuff where we're actually getting out in the community. And so as we came out of the pandemic, the first thing we did was to have the idea, or to implement the idea of expanding the soliciting donations for food pantries into a community outreach project. It was something you could do during the pandemic. It wasn't a club meeting. It was primarily outdoor activity. So it was something we felt safe doing. But it made Rotary visible even during the pandemic. And since then, we've evolved that. We used to do buddy boxes at our club meeting. I don't know if you remember that. But now we go to the Family Mentor Foundation, where they're actually got a much more efficient system, and we can have, actually slightly fewer people involved than we did when we did a club meeting, so we get an awful lot done in about an hour. So we have kind of migrated that. We still do a couple things a year that are in meetings, but most of our things are outside of meetings. Our projects are outside of meetings now. What are some considerations of adding new projects? Well, in a minute, you'll see that our calendar of projects, we kind of settled on a routine of projects for the last 2 or 3 years. We've kind of had a similar schedule of projects. But we always have ideas for new projects or major modifications to existing ones. What are some of the things we think about? We're looking at adding new projects. One, is there a community need that's not adequately addressed by someone else? If someone else is already doing it and is doing it well and doesn't need any more help doing it, there are a lot of things that that, but sometimes that's happening and they don't really need our help. So that's not really a gap that we should be filling, perhaps. But if there is a need that is not being met, maybe that's an area of a project. Also, sometimes someone else is addressing it, but we can help. And so then we have community partners. For example, the food pantries in both Dublin and Worthington we consider to be community partners. They're organizations doing something that we care about. And to the extent that we can, we try to implement projects or carry out projects that help them with their mission. So that helps us, it helps them. And so the food pantry donation projects, yes, those are Rotary projects, but they're benefiting a community partner. And by working with that community partner, we actually do a lot more about getting people fed and meeting the nutrition needs of our community. We work, we're trying to do it by ourselves. Family Mentor Foundation is really a partner. They can certainly do a very efficient job of identifying kids that need buddy boxes and developing that whole program. But when we go in 4 times a year now to help pack those, we're making a contribution to that effort. Second question, we already mentioned this. Do we have a club champion? We have a lot of people say, I've got this great idea for a project. Yeah, are you willing to be the champion for that project? If the answer is no, then you better find one because it won't happen without a champion. Someone has got to be willing to do the work. Someone's got to be willing to organize it. Someone's got to have a passion to make that happen. If we don't have that, then we don't have a viable project. We have a lot of great ideas, but if club members don't have a passion for making it happen, it's not going to happen. Okay. Is there enough support and effort among club members to make it a success? And that's related to the first one. But even if you have a champion, you can have a champion that's all by themselves. Right? They're in a project all by themselves. You've got some projects that one person can't make happen without some help. So unless there's some enthusiasm and commitment among club members, we can't make these things happen. And I'll just aside here, typically, our projects have taken one of 2 forms, either a one-off project, by which I mean something that doesn't happen constantly, so even the Family Mentor thing, we're doing 4 times a year now, the food pantry drive we're doing twice a year, but it's one-off in the sense that it's every few weeks or months that we're asking a whole bunch of people to sign up to help on it. There are other projects where we have 1 or 2 people that make a longer term commitment. Where we seem to have a problem, I don't want to say problem, but just maybe a constraint as a club is getting a large number of people to commit repeatedly, like over weeks and months, seems to be a challenge for all the busy people we have in this club. We seem to have trouble with projects that require that. And so I think we tend to look at projects that fit those first 2 categories, a one-off where we can get enough people interested one time, or something that requires just a smaller number of people to make a longer term commitment. And also we have to consider the skills and interests of our club have changed over time. There are things we've done in years past that we probably don't have the skill set to do anymore. as our club gets older, as we get fewer people, let's say, that have construction skills. You know, something like building a shelter might be more of a challenge now than it was in years past, because our club has changed, and we need to think about, you know, what the skills and talents are of a club. And the final thing is, will Rotary play a visible role, not just contribute to someone else's project? I like, we get a lot of proposals that say, would you like to partner with us on this? And what they really mean is they want to check. Go back to our earlier considerations. We don't just want to write a check, right? We want to have Rotarians actively involved and feel like they were part of making something happen and be visible in the community making it happen. District projects. At one time I heard, and I've heard some people say, we don't do district projects. That's not true. It's not true that we don't do them. It's that we do them if they fit into our mission and our time constraints. And I'll have to tell you, my experience in a typical district project is an idea that comes flowing into us, let's say at the end of July, and they say, make this happen in early September. We're not set up to do that. We're a committee that meets once a month. We like to think about what we're doing. We like to have some discussion and some input about it. And sometimes these ideas already conflict. So I remember one year we had a district project that was to solicit donations for food pantries on a particular day. Well, we were already planning to do that 2 weeks later in our community, right? We already had an established, successful project for doing that. So why would we duplicate that by saying, let's jump through hoops to do that? So we're very selective about that. We do want to plan, and for those of you that are involved in or want to be involved in the district, you know, my suggestion would be give a little more thought to that and give a little more lead time, so that clubs have time to fit it in their program. If they don't know what's coming down the pipe, it's not very useful. But last calendar year, this program year, we did participate in this project in October. And we did that in part because we had our district governor coming to our first meeting in October, and it would be nice to see her participating. But also in part because we thought that this was something that did kind of fit our criteria, because you're asking Rotarians to do something, not just write a check. You're asking them to at least bring in some socks. There was a little bit of internal club competition, and it wasn't something that took a lot of resources away from other stuff that we're doing, even though it was a busy time of year. We still got some feedback that maybe that's not the kind of thing we should be doing. So I am interested in hearing your reaction today. Hopefully next year, you know, that will be something that the district will be doing again. And then the question is, are we going to participate? Because we could probably do a better job and be easier to do if we knew in advance we were going to do it, instead of making a decision late September or the first week in October, that now we're going to do October. My bottom line is, as a club, we usually prefer to plan and implement our own community projects, but perhaps we should look for ways to collaborate with other Rotary and non-Rotary service clubs in our area. And I'll say that, you know, one of the district areas where I was actually an international, this was go out and work with another non-Rotary service club in your area on something. But here's a month's notice and do on a specific date in September. Now we weren't equipped to do that. And, you know, the community service did discuss it, did decide we weren't equipped to do it. And then the district, by the way, did hopefully come up with somebody to say, we have a great idea for you. There's this project where we have in Dublin and Rotary, we have service clubs and youth groups that are gathering donations for their food pantries in September. And they're competing with each other for who can get the most donations to their pantry. And the contest includes a Worthington Dublin football game. Well, that's great. The problem is the idea came to us 2 weeks ahead, and that's not good. You know, it's also not long before we were doing our own drive for those two pantries. And guess what? That's a competition between two communities. If we were the Dublin Rotary or the Worthington Rotary, that would be a great project for us to participate in to help one or the other side. We're Dublin Worthington. How do we participate in a project where we're raising money for both sides that are competing? It just didn't kind of fit who we are. So that's the reason why it usually, but not always, is better if we plan our own. That's been our approach. So here's our service calendar. And it's kind of busy, except that it's a little slow at the beginning of the year, in part because we have a lot of people that aren't here, frankly, and it's pretty busy at the end of the year and people are tired. So it tends to be, but it's spread out pretty well throughout the year. So the buddy boxes aren't, we kind of have to schedule those when Family Mentor Foundation has a time slot available. But generally, we're gonna do one in January, February timeframe. In March, we do one of our 2 food pantry drives. In April, we do Arbor Day. And the asterisk there, donate to things that we still do at club meetings, but other things require it, now our thing where we're going outside of club meetings. In May, we have another buddy box assembly typically. In August, we have a buddy box assembly. So there's also, you see a time in it. In the middle of the year, we don't have a lot of schedule. Part of that is because of family picnic. That's all hands on deck day, right? And we don't want to be doing a big community service project that takes manpower and energy away from that. We want to say, come, participate in the family picnic. Don't worry about having a June, July project for community service. October, back to food pantry donations. November, another buddy box project. November, December, we have our Christmas present donation drive, which has been very successful for many years. It's one of those that doesn't require a lot of committee supervision. In December, outside the club, we deliver those Christmas presents and the family gift cards that we do as part of that project. And also the donated poinsettias. So we sell poinsettias to raise money, but we deliver them to nursing homes as a community service project, okay? I'm gonna mention here this thing that says ongoing, Slate Hill Elementary focus. During the last strategic planning exercise we went through, which was just a couple of years ago, we decided one area where we could make a difference that we aren't now is in education. And consulting multiple sources, we concluded that the area where we could have the biggest impact, if we're gonna focus just on, let's say, one school, would be Slate Hill Elementary School in Worthington. And we kind of got off with a big bang. And I had the principal come out and visit, so we went and visited there. And then we do have a couple of people visiting that have volunteered to work there. Christy, I think, are you still doing that? Which is wonderful that we're doing that. Well, we're kind of right back to that thing I mentioned. It's hard to get a large number of people to commit. So we have a small number of people that are committing to help there, kind of on an ongoing basis. We haven't really identified a lot of opportunities for us to come in and do something like on a one-off basis. And we don't have enough people that are committed, in my view, to do things on an ongoing basis that we could redo what I think we had in mind there originally, which would maybe be working. We'd have a Rotarian working with every classroom in that building, or at least every classroom in a couple of grades. That just hasn't happened. I think that goes back to first champion, because the champion of that project was someone who's no longer active Rotarian. They kind of fell off the map early in the project, and there doesn't seem to be enough passion to kind of carry that. So if any of you out there have that passion, come see me. Because I'd love to see us reactivate that. We've got to have a champion and some commitment to kind of expand beyond where it is. So now we get to your part of the meeting. So here's some thoughts for the future. Some of these are things that we've been wrestling with in committee. We just don't have an answer. And maybe it's a good time to get some more lines thinking about this. But one is our pantry donation drives. I regard that as a successful project. But notwithstanding this as a successful project, the numbers are going down. We have fewer people volunteering, it seems, each time. And we have, and I hope to have a slide up, we don't have it today showing that, quantifying that, but it's true that the trend, we had, during the pandemic, we had a lot of people volunteering, we had a lot of success raising both money and donated items for the pantries. Since then, it's gradually been declining. And I think there's a relationship between the two. In other words, I know from experience of working on this that the more people you have at one of those locations for soliciting donations, the more effective you are. But you're basically asking people as they're going into the grocery store, hey, please consider donating to our food pantries. Here's a list of stuff that we we particularly need, I would appreciate it if you buy one of these things donated, or if you don't wanna do that, donate some cash. The fewer people you have, the more likely it is someone's gonna get past you without getting that message, and if they get past without getting that message, they're not gonna donate. But if you get everybody going into that store, you're gonna get more donations, so I think the fall off in volunteers has contributed to the fall off in donations, but I'm not sure that's the only thing going on. So we certainly would welcome your thoughts. How can we increase participation by this club? And donations? And do we continue the drives even if we continue to have a decline in donations? Yes, Rob.
So I have two young ladies sitting here at the table and I'm like, why couldn't they help us with the food?
They can, absolutely they can. So let's make that,
Dedicated to them and to me.
yes. Great. So that, you've got a great idea there and something that I think we can do. And we can help test, you know, if we can get our volunteer levels back to where they want to be, we can help test whether that's really what's driving the decline in donations. A little bit of maybe because people are less generous as we get past the pandemic, but hopefully we can get our donation back up again if we get our volunteers increasing.
Do you have a measure between, okay, post-pandemic, has it significantly declined over the last 3 years? Do we have a spike, or do you know what those numbers are?
I'm gonna defer to Jerry because he's got the numbers.
They basically declined, after the pandemic,
And never come back?
and they've not come back.
Pre-pandemic?
No, they've not come back.
Yeah. So maybe we had a spike of generosity, but I also think we had a spike of participation. Because when that was the only in-person Rotary community service activity that was taking place, I think we got more volunteers. I think people saw the need and the need to get out and do it, so. Yes,
Have we received any feedback from Slade Hill, whether we've helped them or whether they'd like more help?
well, you're on the committee, what's the answer to that, Joe?
No.
And the answer is,
Probably no.
that means no, right? You're on the committee, we have not received that. And who's the champion for Slate Hill now?
Paul Sinclair.
And to see if they come to our meetings. And the answer is no, he's not really the champion anymore because he's withdrawn from that activity. He's still an active Rotarian, he's withdrawn, and so
Well, maybe I should do this.
if you want to be the champion, then that's the solution, because that's,
I'll be happy to find out if they have any feedback.
yes.
Hey, Don, I'll be the person in the room. What can we even do at Slade Hill?
Right now, well, let's start with what we're doing and then what the original end is. What we're doing is we have some people involved, and Chrissy, you're one of the volunteers. You can talk a little bit about what you're doing. We have individual Rotarians and volunteers to work with the teacher on some things that we can do to help. Could you talk a little bit about what you do there?
I'm working in the library, so I just assist the librarian with shelving books, covering new books. I'm not doing anything where you're directly interacting with the children, so that's not your thing. There are opportunities, but you can also volunteer, like you said, in the classrooms, helping the kids directly.
Right. And I think that the original concept was something like this, that we would do, yeah, great.
My wife Ursula volunteers there once a week with a third grade teacher.
Okay.
Students are,
And she sees students, right? We've got, the original concept was that we would have some people realizing, because of that thing we went through before, that there are only a certain number of people that can make a commitment, like every week or every couple of weeks to go do something consistently. That we would have a small number of people that would do those types of things, some involving student contact. Actually, your wife being an example, and some not. And so that then we would have that, but then in addition, that we would look for opportunities in collaboration with the school where we could come in and do a larger one-off thing, like assist with their fall festival or something of that sort. That hasn't been happening. That's kind of where we need a champion to be working with the principal. I also think the original concept was that we would gradually grow to the point where we had, you know, a Rotarian working with a teacher in at least a couple of grades, every teacher in at least a couple of grades, so that we can make a difference. And that hasn't been happening either, I think, because there hasn't been the degree of commitment to the club. But also maybe we're back to a champion. If we had someone like, Nick Lincolnhofer, when he was an active Rotarian, who was really the one that sold this project, who was really sold on it, and was really trying to stir us up, maybe we get more participation. But it's also possible that we would, because maybe there just aren't enough people that are in a position to make that kind of effort. Yeah. Okay. Since we got 7 minutes left, I got a lot of things to get done. How about October? Who liked it, who didn't? Should we continue with that?
I like it.
I like it.
Like it? No.
I'll tell you why I don't like it. First of all, we should support the district in whatever, but this is not a consistent project. It changes from year to year. It just so happened, I think, that we've done socks 2 years in a row, but that's not the way that those projects have gone. So actually, your board approved a cash donation to whatever that project is. And the club members wouldn't necessarily be asked to contribute. Because we have our own projects. And yeah, we do want to support the district. But how do I know, just me individually, how do I know that their project is something that I want to be involved in? So it's a club contribution, not necessarily an individual contribution.
But should we continue with our project?
Well, that depends on what the project's gonna be next year, and that's up to the governor, so.
Yeah. Okay. About Arbor Day, on Arbor Day, this is a project we've been doing for years. And basically, Mike Bolton has been able to get donations. I think there was 1 year when we actually had larger trees, so we weren't doing anything at the club meeting, but a lot of years, we've been assembling these little packages with the seedlings and the instructions at a club meeting. There's a question we've had for years. We've been thinking about how, the idea is you're giving these seedlings to the students, and the students are gonna go plant trees, right? They're gonna grow up to be trees. How do we know that's really happening? How do we know they're not just getting them right away and not doing it? And I mean, how do we know that? And if that's what's happening, are we really accomplishing what we want to accomplish there? Unless all we're trying to do is educate people to Arbor Day, which is pretty good at. Anyway, but if we really are trying to get trees planted, how do we know that what we're doing now is accomplishing it? And is there a better way to do that? Should we, Jerry's got an idea there, which I'll segue over to him.
Now I'll tell you why I don't like the Arbor Day project. When we first started the Arbor Day project, the schools that we were taking the trees to were hand-picked. And they were picked because the students and parents were homeowners, basically. That's not necessarily the case today. The schools that we're taking these saplings to are heavily apartment dwellers. So they're not planting these trees, and it's not a hands-on project for us. So, I'm just gonna throw out this idea, to you all, but, hasn't gone through committee, it hasn't gone through the board, it's simply an idea. And the idea would be that we establish a Rotary grove. Possibly in Worthington and in Dublin. We work with the city, we work with Parks and Rec. We find a spot where they will allow us to start a grove of trees. And then each year, with Mike's help, I'm glad he's here today, with myself, we would plant trees. Now, we're not planting trees that look like this. But we're not planting trees that look like this. We're planting trees that, is that about right?
Well, they typically run between 10 and 14 inches.
Well, whatever. Something we could handle. Because we would go out and plant these trees. Now, it's a good spot for a little, plaque at the tree for, take your pick. Could be the Rotarian of the Year, could be an Avenue of Service, could be a deceased member, could be anything. But it's a honor grove. We're honoring someone.
Well, the only thing I have to say about that is, anytime you plant something, and I'll give you an example, like the Morello was one, we did that. It was a great project, but I've been asked by the city of Worthington not to do anything else unless we have a committee that's gonna maintain it. And grove trees are the same way.
Yeah.
It's a living thing that's gonna need some kind of care. A lot of times, if you look at the nursery that Worthington has, it's right next to the dog park. They come in and they set up irrigation systems, they have people that water and prune and do all that regularly. Check for insects and disease. It requires some maintenance, so you just can't go out and think, oh, I'm gonna plant some trees around and then let them go and expect them all to live like that without some kind of care, at least for the first couple seasons. So if you consider a project like that, make sure you put in there some type of maintenance program that will accompany that plan. And then you'll be better successful with that project.
I'm sitting next to a master garden. So. There's your champion. There you go. Here's your champion for the maintenance.
Okay. And that's a very good point, because we're all being an example, we had multiple years of effort, and so we thought we had a couple of one-offs to get it done, but we had a lot of one-offs to maintain it, and then.
The biggest problem they have there is,
20.
no, the size of the facility that Worthington has as far as all the schools. They have a very limited maintenance staff. So Dave, the one guy who cuts all the grass, he's cutting 1,000 acres of grass in a week. He didn't have time to go out and do any kind of bed maintenance or anything else other than cut grass. So that again is another one of those areas where you need to have a program in place to maintain that. Or he said, don't even bother, trying to come back and put anything else in.
Right. And that becomes a challenge for us, because we're back to, one of the things we don't do well is committing a lot of people over a very long period of time or something. That's.
Well, it was one of the first things I brought up, and it was brought back to me and said, yeah, oh, yeah, we can get the students to do this, the teachers will do this, but nothing ever happened. When the teachers were involved, when the community garden was there, the teachers were involved with that.
Yeah.
Until summertime.
Okay, we have to wrap up, but the last thing on new project ideas and existing projects. Community service committee meets every month, although we're not gonna be meeting again until February. This is our January meeting. Community service committee members, raise your hand. Jerry, that's you. Even though he doesn't like a lot of the projects, he's participated in all the discussions of them. And until recently, Christie was a member also, until her schedule changed. So, you know who we are, and you can come to our meetings. We typically meet on the third Monday of the month, usually at 40 Chapman's home. Get a hold of me if you want the meeting notice, and feel free to come to our meetings. We hope more people do, and feel free to let us have your ideas for how we can improve our projects or new project ideas. So thank you for that.
Okay, there's a request for a sign. Oh.
Yeah.
There it is. At the front. Thank you, Don, and your committee, you guys are doing great work, and Terry has offered to stay after as a prospective district governor, so I didn't say that right. But we will, if you want to have conversation with him about district projects, he is willing to stay after and listen and bounce ideas. So in lieu of a raffle, we have an empty bucket. If you would like to donate, Charlie, the bucket will be here for another 15 minutes. Okay, here we go, four-way test. Nice meeting, Don. Thanks for letting us. Alrighty, for the things we think, say, and do first.
The truth.
Third, and last,
Concerned.
thank you all for coming and don't forget to return your badges. I keep teasing you, but you know you're gonna be the next
I don't think you talk about, it's a free term.
Yeah.
But it would be fun.
Right.
Terry.
And I remember who was going to ask Charlie Vesty. And he accepted, I need to put it on the
I don't
system.
know.